My conception was immaculate, but my father wasn't God. It was an anonymous sperm donor.
Second grade, when my parents told me about sex, they told me I was an in vitro baby. My mom gave me two books, a normal conception book and then another book on in vitro conception.
It was during 10th grade when I was learning about it in biology class.
And at the time, it wasn't strange in any way to me. It was a wonderful thing because I could tell all my friends that my parents never had sex.
I guess we were talking about the subject at home, at the dinner table or something, and she just included the point that both myself and my twin sister um, were conceived via in vitro fertilization.
When they do in vitro, it's actually really weird to think about because they usually fertilize more eggs than are necessary. So for a while there were 3 eggs, so that meant I would be a triplet. So that's an interesting thought, but they died pretty early on in the birth, in the development stage. So that's interesting.
She had to have in vitro because one of her fallopian tubes was blocked, and so had she tried to have my sister and I naturally, the egg would have developed in the fallopian tube. The fertilized egg would have developed in the fallopian tube, and it would have burst and killed her. So in vitro is like the only option to have kids if, she wanted to live.
Did you ever encounter people who had like judgments or opinions about it?
Yeah, a lot of people think like that it's like, oh, that's weird, especially because I went to a Catholic girls' prep school, and they were always talking about like how in vitro was bad, and people thought that was weird. So,
And
which I definitely don't agree with.
I really got in the habit of not telling the truth about how I was conceived and my mother's sexuality, just because it was easier. But just not knowing how to communicate that was the biggest issue. I understand why they have anonymous policies because I would assume that encourages more people to donate if they know that they're not going to have to worry about any sort of responsibility later on. But I think it would be better if it was not anonymous, just because I think kids really like to know like that basic information about like where they came from, and just like to have a name to throw out there, like what's your dad's name? I don't care about his like drug use or medical history or like ethnicity really, but a name and a picture would have been all the information I needed. Like if I was in that situation, I would sooner adopt, just because it seems like really almost like wasteful to like go through all of these procedures and like spend a lot of money, because it is very expensive to do this, when you can like get someone who's already like here and exists.
I think it's a wonderful thing in the idea of like conception and the number of women who are infertile. So I definitely support it.
It was never really a big deal. Never really talked about it. Just sort of brought it up one day. And now we know.
Really wanted to meet another kid who had the same like background as me, and I never did in Tucson. I never once met a classmate who at least was open about it, and it wasn't until I came to Haverford that I met 2 girls actually who had the same sort of like see, I don't even know what to call it, but who had a similar background as me, and I always thought that we would have like this sudden connection and like everything would be the same and we would have like all these similar experiences, but it just wasn't the case. I mean, it's surprising how different our life experiences have been, and how like that one little thing we have in common almost means nothing.